I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and CEO of e-commerce agency Electric. Today, I'm talking with Lauren Schwartz, owner and creative director at the Loft 325, about the importance of creative in marketing. And actually, the Loft specializes in creative content for direct-to-consumer brands, some of the same brands that Electric actually works with. So I'm really excited to have you on the show and to start to dive into like what works, what doesn't when it comes to creative in the e-commerce space, especially in 2022. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we jump into things, can you give everybody just like a quick high-level intro on yourself, how you got to this point, maybe a little bit of that inception story of starting your own business?
Yeah, so I have been working in e-commerce for the last 16 years and starting as a designer. So I've worked mostly on kind of like the back end side of, landing pages, email marketing design, and really kind of just figuring out like the nitty gritty of basically selling to a consumer and how to get them, onto the landing pages through email, and then how to get them to actually purchase faster through landing page design. And then really started kind of diving into ads when I started working at an agency, obviously doing all of their design, and just kind of fell in love with it. I was just, I loved the mindset of consumers and how they actually purchase and how you can actually get them to kind of stop quicker within the feed. And so I really just, started to dive into that. And actually, over the last couple of years, I decided to step away from the agency side and just really focus heavily on creative. We work really closely with media buyers, with the brands that we work with, but really I just wanted something that just focused on design and the creative strategy side of things to really help brands elevate their paid performance so that they could, essentially just, get more purchases and obviously get more people to their site. So really just kind of stepped away from that agency side and just decided I don't like to call ourselves an agency. I like to call ourselves more of a creative studio and really just focus on design.
Got it. And then your sort of creative process, are you primarily focused on the ad side of things, or do you do like creative for email and SMS?
Yeah, so mostly we're on the ad side of things. We do have someone who works with us in-house who helps with email and SMS, but really our team solely focuses on ad creatives. And then if the client does need help with email and SMS, then we kind of, have them go off to our other, part of it where they can focus on that as well.
Okay, got it. And then you're not actually doing the ad buying itself.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we work specifically with media buyers on their team. And so they really just come to us for just the creative and just the creative strategy.
Got it. I mean, I think it's really interesting, the ability to just hone in on one thing, because I think like something that we did in the beginning was we did literally everything. And obviously that's not, it's not realistic, and you can't be an expert in anything. And
right.
So like now we really only do like two things because we know that that's what we're best at, and we solely focus on those two areas and we're like 10 times the size than when we were doing everything. So
right.
It's sort of funny how that works, the ability to just actually scale because you hone in on what you do best at. And then I feel like the clients too become better because you work your way more up market. And so it makes a lot of sense to me that you partner with ad agencies who can be in the platform, in the ads, actually doing the day-to-day management, and you focus solely on the creative side. It's sort of like that best in breed approach that the Shopify ecosystem takes when it comes to apps and technology as well. Right. You all plug in together versus one just doing everything.
Right. And I mean, when I worked on the agency side, I mean, obviously we had a lot of people in-house, but even though we were all in-house, I mean, really no one talked to each other. I mean, we were all together, but yet we were all separate. And so it was hard because we obviously creative needs to talk to paid, on the buying side of things, but then you also need to talk to the landing page. And there's so many different factors. So just kind of sticking in my lane and knowing like, okay, well, I'm really good at ad creative, but I can work with other people to make sure that we give you the creatives that you need in order to scale accounts, essentially.
So what are some of the trends that you're seeing when it comes to creative that's working in 2022, especially given all of the changes with privacy updates and the shifting of media spend to different platforms? What are some of the things you've been noticing have been working really well, or just trends in general?
Yeah, I mean, obviously UGC has been really big. It was starting to pick up obviously at the end of 2021, but with TikTok kind of exploding this last year, really focusing more on ads. Obviously UGC has taken a huge turn and more people are relying heavily on UGC or user generated content. But truthfully, like it's gone up, UGC has gone up, but then it's also starting to come back down, I think. So we have a lot of ad creatives where we do have a lot of UGC that's focused on in the account, but then we also have a lot of, branded pieces, statics, GIFs. So really, I think UGC works, but I also am, heavy supporter in diversifying your creative. So within all of our accounts, we do have UGC, but we're also still testing statics, still testing carousels, and really just trying to make sure that there's a broad range of creatives within the account that we can test with. So UGC is definitely like the trend right now, but I do see things kind of taking a turn and making sure that there's other things within the account to give people, because people, consumers are getting smarter. They're knowing that there's all these UGC creators. And so I feel like it's just coming out less authentic. And so the more organic type pieces where it truly is someone giving you a review are doing a lot better in the UGC space. But I think, like I said, just making sure you're diversifying your creatives is what's working, honestly.
And then when it comes to the group that you're targeting with the creative, is UGC working better for prospects? Is it working better for remarketing? Is it just across the board?
I mean, it honestly depends on the brand. We work with a lot of different brands. But what I've been seeing within most of our ad accounts is honestly, UGC is kind of working more within remarketing. But again, it depends on the brand. So we have a lot of UGC that we have tested on the prospecting level, and it's done okay. But I think more people, again, like I said, are understanding that these people are creators. And, I think it depends on the platform as well, too. So on TikTok, obviously, UGC is working extremely well, prospecting and remarketing side of things. But then on Facebook, I think we've been kind of pushing more of our UGC into the remarketing side and kind of sticking with, just more branded pieces, founder stories, and really just kind of giving you more of like the value prop knowledge, as opposed to just, giving you UGC right off the bat. But it's kind of that hard question, because I think it just depends on the brand, and I think it depends on the platform you're using as well.
How integrated are you with the advertising agencies on like what's working and what isn't? And does it vary from like campaign to campaign? Like are some, it's all revenue oriented, others are more like awareness based? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so I work directly with all of our brands, and I'm actually very heavily within the ad account. So I have access to all of our ad accounts, and I'm actually checking on how our creative's doing, how, when things are getting tested, how are they working when they're getting tested. But really, I mean, I work very heavily with the media buyers, because really at the end of the day, like we're giving you this creative, but also knowing like what copy is going with the creative, what landing page is the creative going to. Like there's so many factors when we give you a piece of creative that if it just kind of gets handed off and not necessarily like known where it's going to go, I think, on our side, it just makes it harder because we can give you a really good piece of creative, but if all the pieces don't fit together, then it potentially couldn't work, So I'm very actually involved with the media buyers and just kind of knowing like where things are going within the account, just for us too, so that we know like what's performing and what's not performing. Cause I have to go back to my team and let them know like, okay, well, how are our ads doing,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, again, like the media buyers that we work with, they're very good. And again, it's a lot of, back and forth. I mean, really like we like to look at ourselves as kind of an extension of their team, so that we can really help them, get the results that they're looking for.
Yeah, I think that creative feedback loop is something that, because we do our creative in-house, but it's only for email and SMS. And that's a process that are constantly working on trying to make better so that you're not doing things in a silo where like a creative team just goes and makes something and then ships it off and has no idea what the hell actually happens to it. Like, that's not the way that you can continually improve and iterate on your design. The ability for the creative team to understand like why we're A/B testing a certain thing, and like for them to be able to come to the email and SMS team with ideas is really valuable as well. And the more minds you can have on something, the better, I think. But that's been an evolving process for us for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that just translates in general to just business. Like if you don't know what success looks like and you just continue to do and produce day after day, like what are you actually doing? Not seeing the end result, not being able to improve, not even knowing what improvement looks like is a recipe for disaster, I would say, with any business.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I mean, again, like on a lot of the accounts that we're working on, obviously we're kind of, we're not in the day-to-day, but we are in the day-to-day because we have to know exactly how things are, performing. So, when I have weekly calls with my team and then weekly calls with our accounts. And so I think as long as we're all on the same page, really at the end of the day, like we all want the same results. So we have to make sure that we're all talking to each other.
Are you working directly with the client? Are you working through the agency? Is it a mix of both? How does that?
It's a mix of both. Yeah. So we work, half with agencies and then half with the actual brand itself. Which again, like depending on, kind of who I'm talking to, who I'm working with, obviously not all owners are, fully into the day-to-day of paid. They kind of leave that to the other team. But, there are some clients that I work with that are very heavily within, the paid social side of things, and they like to know what's going on. So, it's definitely a mix of both for sure.
What do you think is better? Because there's the clients who are super in the weeds, like almost too much, I would say. And then there's the clients who completely pull back and retract from any involvement whatsoever. And I feel like there's pros and cons to both, but like, what's your preference?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one, obviously dealing, I appreciate the fact that, clients that are in the weeds, it's good, but then it's also really bad because unfortunately they're just so narrow-minded with like what they're doing and how their brand is that, they don't step outside of like what is actually happening. And so a lot of times like it can be difficult to work with clients like that just because, I do have access to a lot of other accounts. And so it's hard to kind of open their eyes to like, okay, well, this could potentially work for you. But again, like they're just so in the weeds of like what's actually happening. So I don't know. It's like good and bad. I mean, again, like there's pros and there's cons, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, I just really just want to make good creatives for you. So how do we make this work?
I feel like there's some clients where there's almost creative paralysis. Like they get so fixated on brand, but then brand isn't able to be translated into a style guide or into other people's heads.
Yeah.
So then they end up being a bottleneck to performance and also to just testing, because sometimes you need to step outside of the box a little bit. And so it's always the first month, I think, is the most important, really the first week, to just level set expectations, get everybody on the same page, establish that like working relationship. Because if that first week doesn't go well, I feel like it almost never goes well long term.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, thankfully we've, knock on wood, we've had really good partners that we've worked with. And so we haven't really had too many people where it's been a lot of, pulling on levers and like trying to make sure that, we're getting everything done. Like, I think we have pretty good set expectations from the beginning. And so I think with a lot of the brands that we work with, like they're very clear on what we need to do in order to succeed and what they need to do in order to succeed. So I think, we've definitely set those pretty upfront, I think, when we first start with clients. So I'm very transparent with our clients. So it's like, this is what you're going to get, so I think that's been helpful.
Yeah. I think when we first started, we didn't really have process. So it was good in the sense that we could be super flexible with our clients and be adaptive, but it led to some scope creep for sure, unrealistic expectations, and then us just like stepping out of our wheelhouse. Whereas now our onboarding process is very defined and we know exactly what's going to happen, like within those first 90 to 120 days, because we have a system in place. The system changes based off of the strategy and the actual deliverables, but the framework stays the same, which is very important. And also, I think just the appearance of the client, like, oh shit, like they really know what they're doing. Like they have the buttoned up process here.
Yeah.
Because half the battle is just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the perception. Half the battle is the perception that they have of you, more so than sometimes even the actual like results and deliverables.
Yeah, it's very true. I learned a lot the first year I started. I was all by myself doing this, trying to get everything working and getting things, up and running. And my processes were definitely not good. I think I overworked myself like way too much because like I said, I had zero process. But you learn as you go. And you realize like, okay, like obviously I need to have a really good process in place in order to be successful and then have our clients, really just set expectations for clients, because you're right. Like the scope creep that we've had from the beginning was really bad. And now we've been able to kind of, nip that in the bud before it even starts.
Yeah, I'm not envious of your position because like creative for me is very hard to like bucket into specifics. So I feel like it just sort of lends itself to scope creep, because like how many creative deliverables do you actually produce? And then how many edits do you get? What are there's so many things I feel like that can go back and forth. So not envious of your position whatsoever, but that's why we all stick to what we do or what we're best at. When it comes to building out your team, how did you go about that? And what has it looked like? Hiring first team member, hiring fifth team member, like what is that evolution been?
Yeah, again, like I said, I started obviously by myself, and really it was more figuring out what were the holes that needed to be filled. Obviously at the beginning, it was mostly just me doing the creative and then me doing the strategy. So that's kind of a hard thing to just pass off to someone, because again, people are coming to the Loft 325 for me essentially. And so kind of making sure that I had to break myself off into pieces was kind of like where I started. And so really the first thing for me was just trying to get people, one who I trusted. There was, I'm a small business, and, obviously I don't have a huge team, but just making sure that I chose people that were really good at what they did and could basically just, see that there was opportunity to grow. So that was kind of how it started, I guess. So really like my first hire, I guess, was someone who could help me with like the operations side of things. So like you said, like the whole process of how to onboard a client, how to like, get people into our system, how to, build that sort of funnel, was something that, again, I wasn't very good at. And so just hiring someone who could help me streamline processes, making sure that, we were up to date on invoices and contracts and, making sure that everything was in our contracts. And so that was kind of the first person I hired, was just making sure that I found someone operationally who could really help me scale this.
I wish that would have been my first hire.
Yeah. Yeah. Just because, I mean, again, like I could do the stuff that I knew how to do, but operations, I am not that person. That is not that side of my brain. So just really focusing on someone who could help me with that. And, funny enough, actually, one of my best friends she's in that side of it. And so she's actually the person that I hired to help me with this. So again, it was good because it was just someone that I trust, I know they can do a really good job. And so really like she kind of came in and just helped with all of that side of it. So now like everything's good with that way. And then as we've kind of like moved on hiring wise, I've been in this industry for such a long time that I've met so many people. I've worked with a lot of different people. And so I've built a lot of relationships with designers and, just people in our industry. And so really the next couple of hires were just people to help me with editing. And I knew people that I have worked with who I trusted. And again, just, kind of reached out. So pretty much everyone that works with me is people I've worked with in the past and people that I know very, very well. And yeah, I mean, really like they've taken a chance on me, they've taken a chance on the business, and together we've all really been able to scale this. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, I think finding those first team members that are in line with your vision it's obviously very crucial, because you need to be able to start delegating. And I wish the operations side of things would have been something I delegated sooner rather than later, as well as a whole host of other things. But I feel like when I start another company, I will delegate everything like way too quickly. I'll be like, accounting, nope, not doing that. Need to get somebody for that.
Yeah.
Operations, nope, not a chance. There's a happy medium, because obviously you need to pick up a lot of the slack in the beginning, especially if you're bootstrapped, and just figure some shit out, versus when you're at scale, you're actually going to be a detriment to your business if you continue to put yourself into the weeds of some areas. Like for us, it was the sales process for new clients that I needed to retract myself from, which was definitely the most difficult part, because that was one of my favorite parts, is like showing them, especially because everything we do starts with an audit. So showing them, here are all the things that could be done better or that you're missing out on, and here's how we can go about addressing them, and then getting them to actually work with Electric and seeing the growth of the agency. But then obviously we have 45 clients. I can't work with them on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And so it's being too much like concentrated in me. And then even if the team was rock star and they were just crushing it, it didn't matter, because the perception was that, oh, like Brandon just sold me through this whole process, and now where is he? And so there had to, like, that was one very specific instance where now I don't do almost any of the sales calls whatsoever, because it was irresponsible of me to not empower the team to be the ones in the driver's seat with the position of authority that they needed to have a successful relationship with the client. So like, that's just one area where it was very glaring to me that you can actually be a detriment to the business if you don't pull back from certain things.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I learned that the hard way too. There's a lot of things that unfortunately I am the bottleneck on a lot of things, because I had my hands in so many of the business. And, I did this last year. I definitely had to like take a step back and be like, okay, like I hired these people for a reason, so I need to let them do their job. And like let go a little bit, which that was hard. That was really hard for me because again, like
Yeah.
it's like you work so hard to build something and you want so badly for it to succeed. And now you're kind of like taking a step back from the thing. It's like your baby kind of like, it's passing
Yeah.
it off to someone like, okay, well, hopefully you do a good job, So I don't know.
And
It was,
you have to be okay with like 9 out of 10 versus 10 out of 10. Not that like
yeah,
you're perfect or I'm perfect, but there's certain things where like I'm like, oh, like maybe I would have done it this way and I think it would have been better, but like it's still amazing. And it's like
right.
being okay with the fact that it's not that 10 out of 10 is something that's super important to be able to
Yeah.
pull back.
Yeah,
Also,
exactly.
just for like mental health too. Like I never want to send another invoice in my life. Like I used to manage our entire
Yeah.
QuickBooks account, do all of the recurring billing, do all of the accounts receivable. And this was just like my third job that would start at 10:30 after I finished dinner. So that I think like burnout is real too. And so at
Yeah.
some point you're just going to hit a wall and you need to be able to pull back from that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is very true. And I think, yeah, I mean, I think I had like 10 jobs when I first did this. And now it's like there's like tiny things and I'm like, okay, like now I can focus on one thing and I don't have to worry about all these 10 different things, which
Yeah.
makes my life so much better.
You can be more productive, like actually get work done, I would say. Like
Yeah.
I've been able to really dive back into some things more deeply because I'm not doing 85 Slacks and 85 emails all at once and just like having my day dictated by exterior factors versus like actually getting to set some real deliverables and get to dive into things and then help set the direction for where we're going as an agency.
Yeah.
That's been valuable. But I know we're coming up on time here. I have like 1,000 other questions, but I'm gonna have to have to call it short. I have one final one for you though, for everybody that's listening. In terms of one takeaway, like one tip that brands that are either just getting started with ads or looking to refine their ad strategy, what's one thing that you would tell them?
Oof. I feel like that's like a
And
loaded question.
it could be three things too. Like you don't have to limit it to one.
Um, I mean, I think if a brand is going to get started with ads right now, I would definitely just make sure that whatever you're selling is clear. I mean, I think a lot of times people, like I said, just get so in the weeds of like what their product actually is. But I mean, I think if you could dumb it down into, telling a child what it is, I think that's like probably your best bet is just making it as clear and simple as possible. And really like tap into your audience, to tap into people who are actually purchasing from you, and seeing how they're reacting to things and really just like get their raw, authentic testimonials. I think that's something that a lot of brands just don't have. They unfortunately pay and curate a lot of testimonials. And so just trying to work on some sort of way to actually get that raw content, I think is super valuable for a brand.
Yeah. Have you ever said no to working with a brand because you don't think the product makes sense or it's not going to work? Because
Yes.
okay.
I've said no to many brands.
That's something that I had to get comfortable with. I'm like, it doesn't matter what we do for email and SMS. Like if you're getting negative reviews from your customers because of the experience that's out of our control, like we can't do anything. So
Yeah.
there's a give and take there.
Yeah.
But
And I definitely think too, it's just a matter of like, I like to use a term like you can't polish a turd, if it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And so I'm not going to sit here and try to waste your time and my time if I know that this
yeah,
product is like, unfortunately, just not going to do well in paid advertising.
yeah. Well, there's other clients where like we could do nothing and it's just like a rocket ship and they make us look amazing.
Yeah.
And so there's there's both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining us. Before we hop off, can you let everybody know where they can find you online?
Yeah. So the loft325.com is our website. And then all of my handles are at the loft325. So Instagram, Twitter, yeah, all of those. I'm on it.
Awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for listening. As always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com, and we'll see you next time.